All right, let's get right into it. So you're in the middle of a commercial real estate deal, and that word appraisal pops up. You know it's a critical step, but you also know it comes with a price tag. The big question we're going to tackle here is pretty simple, but it is so important. Who exactly pays for it?
So picture this. You need to figure out what a commercial property is truly worth, so when appraisal gets ordered, it's not really an optional thing. But when that invoice shows up, who's supposed to open their wallet? Is it the buyer, the seller, maybe the bank? Well, let's figure that out.
And here you have it. This is probably the single most important thing to remember. We'll call it the golden rule of appraisals. Whoever orders it pays for it. Honestly, that one simple idea answers the question in something like 90% of situations. It's a great starting point.
Okay, so let's jump into the most common reason you'd ever need a commercial appraisal in the first place. You're trying to get a loan. Doesn't matter if you're buying a new building or just refinancing one you already own, the lender is absolutely going to require an appraisal.
Now, based on our golden rule, you're probably thinking, okay, the lender ordered it, so the lender pays, right? Well, not quite. This is where it gets a little tricky. The lender is the one who officially hires the appraiser. They need it for their own protection, but they turn around and pass that cost right on to you, the borrower. It just gets rolled into all your other closing costs, which you settle up at the very end.
And this slide just lays it out perfectly. You've got the lender on one side, they're the ones technically ordering the report. But on the other side, you've got the borrower, and that's who really ends up footing the bill. So the key takeaway here, if you're getting a loan for a commercial property, just plan on that appraisal fee being part of your expenses.
All right, so we've covered the whole financing angle. But what about when there's no bank involved? You know, there are actually a bunch of reasons a property owner might want to get an appraisal all on their own. Let's see how that changes who pays.
So why would an owner do this? Well, maybe they want a really solid, unbiased number before they list the property for sale. It just helps them set a smart asking price. Or they might just be trying to figure out what to do next. You know, should I sell this thing? Should I refinance? Should I just hold on to it? An appraisal gives them the hard data to make that call. And sometimes, though it's less common, they might use the appraisal in their marketing to prove to buyers that the price is fair.
And in every single one of those situations, our golden rule applies perfectly. There's no lender. There's no one to pass the cost to. The owner wanted the appraisal for their own reasons, so they're the one who pays the appraiser directly. It really is that simple.
Okay, so we've got the two main scenarios down. But let's be honest, real estate can get messy, especially when lawyers get involved. And this is where that almost always parts of our golden rule really starts to matter.
Just think about things like a divorce, where you've got to split up assets fairly, or settling an estate between family members. It also happens all the time when business partners go their separate ways, or when a property owner thinks their tax bill is way too high and decides to appeal it. In all of these cases, you need a professional, rock-solid valuation.
And here's where it gets interesting. In these legal battles, there's no automatic answer. Who pays is usually decided by a judge in a court order, or the two sides just come to an agreement. So it could be one person, it could be the other person, or, pretty often, they just agree to split the cost right down the middle.
So we've figured out who pays. But what exactly are they paying? Let's talk about the actual dollar signs on a commercial appraisal and, more importantly, if you have any wiggle room on that price.
Yeah, you're going to want to budget for this. A commercial appraisal is not cheap. A simple one might start around $2,000, but for a big or complicated property, it can easily climb past $10,000. We're talking about a serious expense.
So what's with that huge price range? Well, it all boils down to the property itself. Think about it. Figuring out the value of a small, simple retail shop is a lot easier and cheaper than valuing a massive industrial park with 20 different tenants. The more complex the property, the more work it is for the appraiser, and the higher the fee's going to be.
And this is the question that could save you some serious cash. Since we know the borrower or owner usually pays, is there any way to get someone else to chip in, especially when you're in the middle of a sale?
The answer is yes, you totally can. While it's not the standard way of doing things, a buyer and a seller can definitely agree to split the cost of an appraisal. But, and this is a huge but, you have to get it in writing. It needs to be spelled out clearly in the purchase contract. A handshake deal is not going to cut it here.
So as we wrap things up, I just want to bring it all back to this one core idea. If you only remember one thing from this whole explainer, make it the golden rule. At the end of the day, whether it's paid for directly or passed through at closing, the cost almost always lands with the person who kicked off the whole process.
Look, understanding who's responsible for the appraisal fee is a huge piece of the puzzle. It takes away a lot of the guesswork and helps you budget properly for your deal. Now that you know how it works, you're in a much better spot to navigate your next transaction, plan for the costs, and maybe even negotiate them. The only real question left is, what are you going to do with this knowledge?